Thank you very much for joining me for the 2020 Sun in Taurus webinar. This is being presented on behalf of the American College of Vedic Astrology. Hello, my name is Ramdas Bill Sinclair, and I'm so happy you could join me this morning. We're going to be going into a little bit about the transits of Sun through Taurus this month, and this is part of a larger series that we're doing each month to really establish the Sun's movement throughout the year. All of my contact information is listed here at the bottom of the screen. I'd like to begin by thank you for supporting the American College of Vedic Astrology. Just by being here, it's very helpful attending these events and also subscribing to our YouTube channel at American College of Vedic Astrology. On our website, aquaonline.org, you can sign up for our mailing list and we'll keep you updated on our events. And as always, we are a tax-exempt organization, so any donations you make for us are a tax break for you. So I hope you'll consider that if you have or looking for charitable giving opportunities. Let's begin with a little mantra for world healing, and just to get centered before we go into the material. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mokshiyam Amritat. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mokshiyam Amritat. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mokshiyam Amritat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So today we're going to be talking about the Sun in Taurus. We'll be discussing some of the key transits that are happening this month, and also we'll be doing a sign-by-sign listing at the end, and then there will be time for questions. So the Sun will be in Taurus from May 14th until June 14th. And just a note, all of the charts we're using today are set for sunrise in Seattle, Washington. Here's a look at the moment that Sun enters Taurus, and that's on the 14th of May at 5:37 a.m. in Seattle. What we see here is that Sun in Taurus is in an enemy sign. So the first thing we notice, the Sun is not in a great mood, and we'll talk a little bit about how that's likely to manifest in a minute. The other thing that's very clear in the chart is all the planets you'll see are between the two nodes, between Rahu and Ketu. We have all the planets located there. This is called a Kalasarpa Yoga. This has been going on since February of this year. It's 2 weeks on, and then the moon breaks it, goes outside of it, and then comes back in. So this is the final cycle. And what this tends to bring is an increased sense of tension and pressure just to our daily lives. So it's an interesting cycle to see, and we just note that that is active on the day that the Sun starts its transit. So this means the entire transit will be a little more intense. Additionally, we see here that Mars is casting his fourth aspect onto Taurus. So Mars is going to, it's a negative aspect onto the planets, which makes them even more uncomfortable. And then we look at the Rashi Drishti aspects. Now, this is a different way of calculating aspects, but it's given in Parashara. And very quickly, one of the rules here we see is that planets in cardinal signs, like here we have Moon, Saturn, and Jupiter in Capricorn, aspect all of the fixed signs except the one next to them. So Moon, Saturn, and Jupiter would be aspecting all the planets in Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio. So this means that everything in the chart is aspecting to this sign of Taurus. When you have a convergence of that energy, it brings a lot of tension, uncertainty, and kind of a turbulent energy that's going to be stirring around. So we have the moon sitting there with Mercury and Venus has turned retrograde, all kind of mixing in together. And I think this will bring a rather intense month while Sun is there. So what I mean by that is that since Sun is in an enemy sign, he also has a role as a supportive ruler of the fourth house, which may help to balance us a little bit. But I really think the fourth house is about our emotions, our sense of happiness and satisfaction. And because the ruler is in such a difficult state, I believe that this will bring a lack of satisfaction. I think we'll feel uncomfortable, and it's interesting that it's literally the house, the bhava of the home or house, and we're all under these stay-at-home orders. So Sun is there, and I think this could be a change in that status. But when the Sun is not comfortable, he tends to manifest uh, lower characteristics of his nature, which are basically a lack of connection to the soul, misery, grasping, self-centeredness. This is all to say that the Sun in his higher mode is very magnanimous, very generous and open and thinking of others. Here we're thinking more of ourself. It's ego in the sense of the word of like uh, of looking out for ourselves first. There can be a lack of self-confidence. It can be feeling timid, feeling fearful, the tendency towards chronic health issues, and lack of resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity. And finally, we most often see leaders, especially when their Sun is weak, are stubborn, dogmatic, bullying. And these three characteristics really come out of a feeling like a lack of authority or feeling inferior to other people. So this is going to cast kind of this type of energy over the next 4 weeks while Sun is in this sign. Now, he is aspected by Mars, who is in a neutral sign, as we said. And as you'll see, he has an exact aspect to Rahu. And so here on the chart, you see that Mars is getting an exact aspect from the planet of Rahu to the same degree. So that is going to increase the intensity of Mars's aspect onto all of the planets in the fourth house. Sorry, in Taurus, under his fourth gaze. Um, and we mentioned already the Rashi Drishi aspect. The other thing I want to bring up is on June 3rd, we see the conjunction of Sun and Venus. And so this is going to be a day, this is interesting because Venus will be fully combust at that point. Sun is under pressure. So both planets will be are really challenged on that day. And this is happening in the nakshatra of Rohini, which is ruled by the moon. So we're going to be feeling, it could be a very emotional day. And it's something just to look for. This would be a day that I always think for myself, I need to like clear the decks as much as I can. Don't make a bunch of commitments for June 3rd because there's going to be unsettled energy. Could be a very good day actually for meditation. So that's something to think about. So the big signature of this transit is that there are three planets that are stationing on the day that Sun enters Taurus. So Jupiter is in his debilitated sign, and he starts to retrograde on the exact day, May 14th, when Sun enters Taurus. And he will be retrograde up into the 12th of September. Now, so this is, when we look for in transits, we look for synchronicity. We look for a couple things happening at the same time, and that's where we focus. That's where we're more likely to see events. So to get a better sense of Jupiter's, the energy that he's bringing, is that he is the Nadi Karaka in the Jaimini Charakaraka list. And the Nadi Karaka brings all the challenges and obstacles into our life. And Also, it's specifically they mentioned related to disease. So this could be, this is like Jupiter is retrograding and he's going to go back into Scorpio, sorry, back into Sagittarius. But there we see that this is going to be a challenging time. Also, the retrograde starts in Uttara Ashada, which is ruled by the sun, which we know right now at the time is also compromised. And the symbol of Uttarashada is a simple bed. So it's a very uncomfortable place. You're not getting, so one thing, we may not get good rest. We could see, just naturally. But the interesting thing in the light here is that Uttarashada, the Shakti, is that it can give an unchallengeable victory. And so what this means is that the goal is that we will eventually learn the difficult lesson we're facing right now, but we will continue to face the austerity and a little bit of penance during this time. So that's the first influence. The next two influences, interestingly enough, Venus is in its own sign, and he will retrograde on the 13th of May, which is the day before. And Venus stations for 2 to 3 days on either side of the day that he retrogrades. So he's still stationing, and that he'll be retrograde up and through June 25th. He represents in this chart the role of the Amatya Karaka. These are the advisors to the king. So it's very interesting here that the advisors are even compromised. So this could be a confusion in the information we're getting. So the Amatya Karakas that we're hearing from now are people like Dr. Fauci and the head of the CDC and people like that. So he's turning as Jupiter moves in here. Now, a good point is that he is in Mrigashira, which is a softer nakshatra. And this will make Venus a little more comfortable in the energy that he's giving us. But it is ruled by Mars. And so we have that Mars influence, and we've talked about how that's kind of a sharp thing. And, so this is also going to be a kind of uncomfortable time. Venus is the lord of the Lagna and his own sixth house. So for Taurus rising, the lord is considered to be inimical. It's the only Lagna lord that has this status among all the 12 signs. So the retrograde will add more likely confusion, and there could be some delays in the development of different treatments and in our understanding of the disease due to this. Saturn is in his own sign, and he started to retrograde on May 10th. But as he has a 5-day station on either side, he is also continuing to be stationing, and he will be retrograde up through September 28th. And interestingly enough, he will stay still within the sign of Capricorn this entire time. So this is a very intense transit. And he is also in Uttarashada. So he's bringing more of that kind of, it's time for us to undergo a little bit of suffering in order to gain the awareness and learn the lessons that we need to learn. So this is going to be a theme throughout the summer. And the role he's playing actually in this chart is the Pitri Karakas. Now these are the ancestors. So in our interpretation to modern day, we would have to look at people who have experience and wisdom in a particular area. So it means that these people are going to be less available because Saturn is retrograding. So this always means there's some kind of interruption in the flow of information from them. Whenever a planet turns retrograde, it tends to go backwards, and because it's going backwards, it means that our understanding cannot be so clear because things seem to reverse. So with all three of these things moving backwards, it's likely that we will see a resurgence, I think, in cases of coronavirus, because these are the two natural benefics here that are going backwards, and the wisdom. So I find this very interesting that mid-May we're going to be facing this combination of planets, and here we're in the process in the U.S. of opening up, and Western Europe they're opening up. People are going out. I think this could be telling us that if we're not really careful and take individual responsibility for wearing a mask, washing our hands, social distancing, we could see a rise in cases again. So if we handle ourselves, then it'll just be a delay and we'll be disciplined. But Uttarashada is about discipline. So as we embrace our discipline, the more we do that, the quicker we can get to beyond this to understanding how to handle it. So those are the three things that I think are very interesting in the next month to watch and see what happens and see how these three planets turning retrograde within days of each other and the sun moving into Taurus are going to impact us. So let's look at the three nakshatras. So the underlying energy of Taurus from May 14th until May 24th, the sun will be demonstrating what we call the power to burn. This is in the nakshatra of Kritika, who is ruled by the sun. And I take that to mean the power of transformation. Burning is actually a transformation, and it leads into the next nakshatra, which is ruled by Rohini, which is the power of growth. So if you think about after a forest fire, then it actually spawns new growth and new strength. This is the potential that we have from this. And the sun will be in this phase from May 25th until June 7th. And finally, we come to the third point, which is the nakshatra of Mrigashira, who is ruled by Mars, the power to give fulfillment. And the sun will be there from June 8th until June 21st. And so I think this is the potential that we have if we track the sun to go through this process. And this is key to understanding the energy supporting the sign of Taurus, that we can go through this transformation, growth, and fulfillment period once we get into Mrigashira. And then I actually broke down to the padas. These are the navamshas, each one of them, to understand on a little more refined scale how the energy of the sun is going to be manifesting. So from May 14th to the 20th, he is in inimical signs ruled by Saturn, but he's in his own nakshatra of Kritika. So this would be, on the most granular level, these could be a little more challenging times. He's just getting settled into the sign, and in fact, you see that this is the first one is when all the planets are starting, the retrogrades are setting in. A better time for sun comes next from May 21st to May 27th, when he is not only in friendly nakshatras, but he's also in friendly signs, and even his own in Aries, the sign where he's exalted. So May 25th to May 27th, if you have any projects or interactions with typical sun type people, which would be authorities, people in government, leadership, or if you have those roles, those would be a very good time. Try to schedule those events in that time period, which would be more favorable. From May 28th to May 23rd, he is in Vargotama, so he's in the Taurus Pada, and so that's technically listed as an enemy sign, and he's in his nakshatra of Rohini. But because it is a Vargotama, the sun is actually transiting his own sign, so it's in the same in the Rashi and there. That can actually be also a very good time for him. So it can be almost like the exaltation continues. So if you have significant events during that time, I would revise what I wrote on the screen here, and I would say that could also be favorable. From June 1st to 3rd, it would still be positive because he's neutral in the Pada of Gemini. And through 4th through the 10th, we go on with strong times and neutral. So really, most of the month, this is some hope that the sun can be active. Now, when he's active and he's putting out his better qualities here, it doesn't mean that there still won't be the mix, because he's basically uncomfortable in the sign where he's seated. So this could mean that it seems kind of chaotic. And that's one thing I have keep noticing in the planets this month, is that they're going to be giving a lot of contradictory information. So let's look quickly at some other transits that we have, and we'll go into a little more detail on these. We've talked about the Jupiter retrograde, and we're going to talk about Rahu changing signs, which is a major event. The Kalasarpa cycle ends on May 25th, which is another major event, and we have an eclipse on June 5th. So those are the other things going on that are going to be impacting our life. So on May 15th, as I've said, Jupiter turns retrograde, and we've discussed that at length. On May 21st, Rahu is going to enter Mrigashira. Now I want to comment that this is using the mean node system. And so the mean nodes actually, this year, if you use true nodes, he would have moved into Mrigashira around April 20th. So this is a good opportunity to see where you sense more of the change in energy. Rahu has been as his own sign, his own nakshatra of Ardra, which is a very difficult nakshatra. And he moves on the 21st into a softer nakshatra, ruled by Mars, but also by the moon. The lord of Mrigashira is Soma, which is the god of nourishment and Amrita and awakening. So I think this will take the edge off of the Rahu energy that we have been experiencing for the last many, many months. I should note that Ketu remains in Mula, his own sign in Sagittarius. So the whole axis isn't cleared yet, but the intensity, I believe, will lessen. On May 22nd, we have the new moon in Taurus in the nakshatra of Kritika, which is ruled by the moon. Ruled by the sun, and it will continue this impulse of transformation. So on May 25th, we have Mercury in his own sign, and Mercury moves into his own sign of Gemini, and the Kalasarpa yoga cycle ends. Now, Kalasarpa, as we talked about earlier, is when all the planets are hemmed in, and it tends to create a feeling of intense pressure and stress. And this started around February 23rd, which this is exactly like when, I know in the US, the pandemic started to be the center of attention. So I'm hoping that as it moves out here, it may be that we have learned our lesson and we can be a little more returned to everyday life, knowing that what we have to do is take certain steps to keep ourselves safe, and we can integrate our lives a little more into a normal pattern. And then on June 5th, we have the prenumbral lunar eclipse, and this is happening at 21 degrees of Scorpio. So additionally, I want to point out that the big transit of the year is that we have these series of very strong yogas that are happening. So Venus is in a Malavya yoga, and this is for the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And really the energy here that Venus is giving is that it's selfless service. It's a very spiritual and brave person. Venus, it's the highest vibration of Venus is active for those signs. Now, unfortunately, when he turns retrograde, that highest energy is not so clear because the retrograde motion tends to confuse what's going on with the planet. We also have Saturn in his own sign, and this is active for Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And this is a Sasha yoga, we call it. And what this is a person who will stand up for what they believe in. They'll champion unfashionable causes. They're not interested in popularity. So it's a very strong sign, a strong energy that they can really promote change for what they feel is the right path. Unfortunately, Saturn is also retrograde, so that energy is dimmed a bit and is subject to being corrupted. So it could be that this is not, it's an unfashionable cause, but it may not be for the good of all people. It may not be for the highest good. It may be perverted in other ways and directed into other things. And then this month, when Mercury moves into his sign of Gemini on the 25th, we begin a Bhadra Yoga. And so Bhadra has many meanings, and they're all positive, beautiful, auspicious, blessed, gracious, and happy. And so all these qualities shine when it's when Mercury is in the yoga. And it's a powerfully intellectual person and also a very practical thinker, but has a sense of humor. I think this could be a great gift, and I think this is likely to manifest in the advancement of treatments and the data gathering and testing. I think those things will really become the focus, and we'll start to see really productive results from them. And this could be vaccines as well as treatments for people in the hospital, and the testing availability, and maybe even better tests and faster access to them. So this is just a quick snapshot. We're going to look at the eclipse on June the 5th. And you see here that Moon is in it's in a Kimadruma yoga because there's no planet in the house either side of it. The nodes are not counted in this. It's in its sign of debilitation. And in the angles to the Moon, we have two malefics. We have Sun and we have Mars. And we also have Venus, who is in retrograde. So there's not a lot of positive support. My takeaway from this on the top line is that this yoga, this eclipse, is going to be quite emotional. And we see the good thing is that Moon is in Jeshta, the nakshatra, and Mercury is well placed in his own sign, so the Bhadra Yoga is active. But if we look closer, we see that Mercury is 8th from the Moon, which is not a good sign. And Mercury is actually in Rahu's sign of Ardra, which we talked about earlier, which is a very sharp sign. It's difficult, and it's the symbol of Ardra is a teardrop. So I think if we look at this, this could be a very emotional time around June 5th. So I would just put that out there so that you can be prepared and aware of this in case you feel upset. Again, this is not a time to overbook yourself. Just be careful about that timing. So let's go through and try to give a little look at how all these factors combine sign by sign. So if your moon or lagna are in Aries, Sun will be in the second house and could indicate issues with family and income. Mars in the 8th house can bring sudden financial reversal, so always have a little set aside. For Taurus, the Sun will be in the 1st house and could indicate depression, lowered vitality, or lack of motivation, all indicators of the 1st house. Mars can bring stress and drama in the work environment. For Gemini, Moon, or Lagna, Sun will be in the 12th house, his weakest house, and can indicate poor sleep quality, especially around the eclipse, and also concerns over debts and overspending. So keep an eye on that. For if your Moon or Lagna are in Cancer, Sun will be in the 11th house and can delay anticipated income. There can be a tendency to spend money you don't have. Mars in the 8th can indicate a return to negative coping mechanisms. So, I mean, we have to recognize that we're living with an extra layer of stress with this whole COVID-19 thing happening and the disruption in our daily life. It's been going on for a while now. And so it's time to look at ourselves and see if we haven't checked into some of our more negative coping skills. So that could be like overeating or watching too much TV or really irregular sleep schedule. And the problem with the negative coping, what's negative about these coping mechanisms, is while we think they make us feel better, in fact, they don't. They actually dysregulate our mood even more. So just a thought for the Cancer moons and Lagnas out there to check in on that and get back on a schedule that helps you feel better and more active and more vitalized. For Moon or Lagna in Leo, the sun is in your 10th house and can make you feel like you deserve more recognition or compensation than your current employment is able to provide. Mars in the 7th can bring impulsive behavior, especially in partnerships, career, and home life. Now, this isn't all bad because maybe you do suddenly recognize your self worth a little more. And so you may start making plans to find a better opportunity, either in your work, partnership, or, home life. Maybe you look at changing houses, who knows? But just be aware of this, that this is likely to come, and it's important to analyze it clearly because we do have 3 planets that are retrograding right now, which are confusing the energy. So if your moon or lagna are in Virgo, sun is in the 9th house and can make you question authority figures and traditional beliefs. Mars in the 6th can bring accidents and injuries. So just keep that in mind. I would say to people, this is not the time to go bungee jumping. I don't know if people do that anymore. So if your moon or lagna are in Libra, sun in your 8th house will bring monetary concerns and feelings of helplessness regarding your finances. Mars in the 5th can be used to take action to remedy this situation and release the anxiety. For Scorpio moons and lagnas, sun in the 7th can bring interpersonal conflict and insecurity around your relationships. Don't allow your imagination to dwell on negative ideas. Instead, practice positive acceptance. There can be a tendency with all the retrograde and the sun being tumultuous and the whole Kalsarpa yoga thing. Scorpios can lean into a little too much paranoid thinking. Especially for Scorpios, avoid all of the conspiracy theories that are now coming out about the whole world, you know, because it won't do you any good. We can never know the truth of a conspiracy theory. That's why they never die. So it's best just to stay positive and save yourself the anxiety about these things. For Sagittarius, Moon, or Lagna, Sun in the 6th may bring conflicts and health issues to the surface. Here, the Sun's bad mood can help to resolve these issues in your favor, as long as you remain confident. So what I'm saying here is that the conflicts and health issues are going to surface. But because the sun's in a combative mood, that's actually a very good thing to have a malefic in the 6th house because it will help you marshal your resources and really go fight off the disease or set your boundaries and maintain your space if it's interpersonal conflict. If moon or lagna are in Capricorn, sun in the 5th will accentuate the creative nature of Taurus and may be a way to work through stress. Here, the natural 2nd sign may bring great power to mantra work. Saturn in the Lagna requires hard work, so don't let the sun's lethargy sidetrack your action. Capricorns need to work. Saturn is turning retrograde. We need to work even harder. And so try to make it fun, the work that you're doing. So take time to do your mantras, do things that are creative and fun. You don't have to make it a drudge work. You can really make it a creative experience for yourself. If your moon and lagna are in Aquarius, sun in the 4th will bring thoughts of cleaning up the home, but you will have to exert a lot of effort to actually get something done. Mars in the 1st, use Mars in the 1st to start projects on a Tuesday. So this is where you have to lean into that Mars energy, which Saturn doesn't usually like to go to, and then you can have success in this area. For Pisces, Sun in the 3rd house will bring issues with younger siblings. You can be seen as overbearing, so just be advised. Saturn in the 11th can bring overdue rewards. So let Saturn bring it to you, but especially in dealing with younger siblings, just be sure, use your Piscean nature to really read their mood before, if there's any conflict or animosity that comes up. So that's what I prepared for this. I hope this was helpful. Thank you again for attending, and I wish you all the best. Namaste.